Tonight, deep skepticism over Russia's claims of an assassination attempt on Vladimir Putin. An alleged drone strike on the Kremlin called a deceptive ploy.
We didn't attack Putin.
What it could mean for the war in Ukraine. The Prime Minister's brother defends a donation and claims of foreign interference.
Why did you have to sign?
No reason to believe their motives were not honorable.
Alexandre Trudeau on the check from China for his late father's foundation. Plus, grievances and glamour for a royal milestone. From lavish celebrations to painful reflections. Mixed feelings for the new monarch.
I don't really care about him getting crowned.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina, reporting tonight from London.
The British capital, where a massive security operation is underway ahead of the king's coronation. Good evening, everyone. Security in Moscow was also tightened today after Russia accused Ukraine of attempting to assassinate Vladimir Putin. Multiple videos shared online show what Russia says was a drone attack on the Kremlin. But there are many questions tonight about whether what was seen can be believed, with some experts calling the move a false flag that could be used to justify more violent strikes on Ukrainian targets. CTV's Ottawa Bureau Chief Joyce Napier starts us off.
Two drones seen flying over the Kremlin, blown out of the sky deep into the night by Russia's military. The state media immediately blaming Ukraine for what it called a foiled assassination plot with no evidence to share. We regard these actions as a planned terrorist act and an attempt on the president's life, read a statement from the Kremlin. The Russian side reserves the right to take retaliatory measures where and when it sees fit.
It's very easy.
On a visit to Finland, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was quick to deny his country had anything to do with it.
We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities. We don't have, enough weapons for this.
An alleged plot met with some skepticism in Washington, D.C.
I would take anything coming out of the Kremlin with a very large shaker of salt.
The question then is who sent in the drones? This author and activist, among others, saying it could well be the Russians themselves.
This is a very clumsy false flag operation. In other words, that the Russians were drone attacking themselves in order to try to create some pretext for some escalation that they intend to do going forward.
Somebody trying to kill Putin would measure really well in their propaganda that would then galvanize the people of Russia behind Putin to go after the Ukrainians.
The Russian president wasn't even in the Kremlin at the time of the drone incident. No one was hurt by the falling debris.
We very much know how Russia share and link anything that happens to nefarious plots against them.
The question now is, will the Kremlin use the alleged assassination attempt to escalate the war in Ukraine? Russian generals have warned several times that any attack on their territory would be met with a harsh response. Omar?
All right, Joyce, thank you. Serbia has declared 3 days of mourning after a teenager shot and killed 9 people at his school. Police say the 13-year-old was armed with 2 handguns belonging to his father, along with Molotov cocktails. He also had a hit list.
The scene when you see the kids, 7 years old, are crying, the parents, the grandparents, it was terrible, terrible.
8 students and a security guard were shot to death, with 7 others taken to hospital, some with life-threatening injuries. The Prime Minister's brother made a rare appearance on Parliament Hill today. Alexandre Trudeau testified about a donation from China made to the foundation that bears his father's name. It comes as Justin Trudeau was also facing questions about threats from China against the family of a Canadian MP. CTV's senior political correspondent Glenn McGregor reports.
The Prime Minister's younger brother made a rare step onto the public stage. Alexandre Trudeau came before a parliamentary committee to defend the organization named for their father.
The Pierre-Elliott Trudeau Foundation has not been a part of any foreign interference attempts.
At issue, $140,000 in donations from Chinese billionaires that he signed for on behalf of the foundation in 2015. Money, the opposition charges, that was intended to win favor with his brother's government.
That's quite a deal for $140,000, I'd say, that they were both able to access the Prime Minister.
Trudeau said the money was for scholarships, and he denied speaking with his brother about the donations or the foundation.
I'm one of the few adult people in this country who can offer him a world outside of politics.
Earlier today, Justin Trudeau was responding to other allegations that he didn't warn Conservative MP Michael Chong that his family had been targeted by a Chinese diplomat over his 2021 motion denouncing the treatment of Chinese minority groups.
Mr. Speaker, I vote for the motion.
Trudeau said he learned only this week from Canada's spy agency about a threat to retaliate against Chong's relatives in Hong Kong.
CSIS made the determination that it wasn't something that needed to be raised to a higher level because it wasn't a significant enough concern.
Not good enough, says Chong.
Is the government did nothing about a person in Canada that was targeting me and my family and targeting other MPs. And that is an appalling lack of leadership.
The Conservatives are demanding the diplomat from the Toronto consulate be expelled.
Any other Canadian had done this, they'd be charged and in jail, but because the Prime Minister has given diplomatic immunity and credentials to this agent, he's able to act with impunity.
I'm afraid the Conservative leader is inventing the laws around diplomatic immunities.
So far, the government has not sanctioned that diplomat, but the Prime Minister says he expects CSIS to warn MPs of any attempts by foreign actors to influence their work. Omar.
All right, CTV's Glenn McGregor tonight in Ottawa, where the Canadian delegation that will attend this weekend's coronation was revealed. The Prime Minister and Sophie Gregoire Trudeau will be in attendance along with the Governor General. Indigenous leaders Roseanne Archibald, Nathan Obed, and Cassidy Caron will also be coming to London. And historian Margaret Macmillan, Leslie Arthur Palmer, who was awarded the Cross of Valor, and astronaut Jeremy Hansen will take part in a procession for national honors recipients. Hansen, who will travel around the moon as part of the Artemis II mission, will be Canada's flag bearer. 45 members of the Canadian Forces will also be here in London to take part in the coronation military parade. CTV's Danielle Hamanjan on the preparations and security with just 3 days to go.
The first Buckingham Palace garden party under the reign of King Charles III. Among the guests, diplomats, community volunteers, and this Canadian woman who set up a dance charity in Wales.
I just want to see the gardens, to be honest. Yeah, it's just a little peasant going to the palace.
Andrew James, a small town mayor, brought along his students.
I'm teaching in a school, and that's my little class.
And Paulette Adassa is an MP who's never met the king.
I'm just looking forward to hopefully even an introduction. But if I don't get one...
What are you going to tell him if you meet him?
You've got a hard road ahead of you.
The event also featured a few celebrities.
Does this ever happen? No. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So, to be a part of it is everything.
7,000 members of the armed forces will be involved in ceremonial duties. Hours after their overnight rehearsal, it was the King's turn. As the royal standard was raised above Westminster Abbey, the man of the hour appeared, along with his wife Camilla, who will also be crowned. The planning for the coronation has been years in the making. Its codename, Operation Golden Orb. Security plans have now been reviewed following an arrest outside the palace Tuesday evening.
We have an extremely low tolerance for anything or anyone who comes to disrupt this event.
Nearly 30,000 police officers will be deployed, and facial recognition technology will be used in the capital. Officers are clearly on high alert. Operation Golden Orb, according to the Met Police, is one of the most significant and largest the force has ever led.
The biggest issue for police will likely be protesters trying to draw attention to their causes. Anti-monarchists are expected to be here at Trafalgar Square along the procession route. Omar.
CTV's Danielle Hamamjian at Trafalgar Square tonight. And a reminder that tomorrow at 10 p.m., CTV News presents King Charles, the Crown, and the Quarrels, ahead of the main event on Saturday. Our coverage of the King's coronation starts at 3 a.m. Eastern, midnight in BC. British investigators, along with police in Canada and the U.S., are tracing the connections tonight between an Ontario man and a series of deaths by suicide in all three countries. CTV's Heather Wright on the disturbing allegations of putting profit before people.
Families accuse him of playing God, and tonight Kenneth Law is behind bars, charged with 2 counts of counseling or aiding suicide.
3 a.m. in the morning, and he went running into his mom's room, screaming, begging her to call the emergency responders.
Anthony Jones from Detroit was just 17 years old when he ingested sodium nitrite last February, a salt-like substance typically used to preserve meat, but which can be deadly in certain amounts. His family's lawyers say Jones purchased the product from a Canadian website run by Kenneth Law. After taking the substance, the teenager tried to get help, but it was too late.
The mother had to witness her son pass away after they tried to pump his stomach several times because that won't work.
Law is charged in connection with aiding 2 deaths in Ontario, one in March and one in January of 2022. But police believe the 57-year-old man from Mississauga sent at least 1,200 packages to 40 different countries.
Investigators are working in collaboration with multiple jurisdictions across Ontario, nationally and internationally, as we believe there could be more victims.
His websites have been taken down, but archived web pages show sodium nitrate for sale at more than 99% purity, with no poison control markings on the packaging. While the substance is permitted in Canada, it's regulated to ensure it's sold in quantities that are safe for consumption.
It is quite toxic when taken in pure form. The body is kind of like starved of oxygen internally.
Last week, the Times of London reported that several young people in the UK had killed themselves using products bought from Law, who told the paper he was only selling a product and wasn't responsible for what was done with it.
Law made a brief court appearance today and was remanded into custody. Meanwhile, Ontario Provincial Police, along with several other local police forces, have issued public safety warnings about this substance. Omar.
Heather Wright in Toronto tonight. Quebec police have recovered the bodies of 2 firefighters swept away by fatal floodwaters. Police found both victims less than 500 meters apart from one another along the banks of the Rivière du Gouffre, northeast of Quebec City. 23-year-old Christopher Lavoie and 55-year-old Régis Lavoie were helping people evacuate from their homes on Monday when they were swept away by the powerful current. Overseas, extensive flooding in western and northern Rwanda has claimed the lives of at least 129 people. Torrential rains also led to landslides. People forced from their homes tried to salvage whatever they could as rescue crews searched for others who were trapped. And there is more rain in the forecast. Coming up after the break, the problem with paper products in the war on waste. Plus,
and a very deliberately choreographed process.
Changing Camilla, an epic image overhaul. Welcome back to London, where they are still about 6 months away from banning single-use plastics. Canada, of course, has already begun to turn the page. But tonight, environmentalists are warning about a potential pitfall to trashing the plastic for paper. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Melanie Nagy explains.
Crucial to Canada's plan to achieve zero plastic waste by 2030 is the prohibition of single-use products. But with that ban, more and more paper packaging is popping up, and it's a growing concern.
This is a really critical moment
for environmentalists like Nicole Rycroft.
We absolutely need to shift away from using plastics, but we want to make sure that we don't create another environmental disaster.
Rycroft's organization, Canopy, works to protect the world's forests. It estimates every year 3 billion trees are cut down to make packaging like bags, straws, and food containers.
Much of that arises from the world's ancient and endangered forests.
Adding to worries of increased deforestation are the large amounts of energy and water required to make paper products. According to the UN-backed Institute for Water Education, it can take up to 13 liters to make one standard piece of paper.
Not all papers are created equal.
York University's Calvin Lacken is an expert in waste management. While paper is easier to recycle than plastic, he says it still ends up decomposing in landfills.
Which some people would think it's a good thing. Hey, it's not taking up space. But during that decomposition, it's releasing greenhouse gases, primarily methane, which has a significant impact on climate change.
If paper isn't perfect, what's a solution? Some companies are using agricultural waste like straw to make new sustainable products. Consumers can also make a difference by opting for reusable packaging when possible.
We need to transition away from a single-use model, irrespective of whether it be plastic or whether it be paper.
Rethinking how and what we can reuse to reduce all waste. Melanie Nagy, CTV News, Vancouver.
Some major recording artists are on this year's list of inductees to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
On the road again, going places that I've never been.
Willie Nelson is one of the stars in the performer category, a group that includes Missy Elliott, who's the Hall's first female hip-hop artist. The late George Michael and Kate Bush are among the British stars on the list. The induction ceremony is scheduled for November 3rd in New York. Still ahead tonight, from Buckingham Palace to the rough streets of Brixton, gauging the connection to the coronation there. Welcome back to London, where the anticipation for the coronation is mixed, depending on where you are in the city. The royal family's refusal to issue a formal apology for its role in the slave trade is part of the reason some former colonies are thinking about severing their links with their monarchy, like Jamaica. I spent the afternoon in London's Little Jamaica, where there is ambivalence about Saturday's spectacle. Brixton and Buckingham Palace are 20 minutes away from one another, but worlds apart. This is one of London's most diverse neighborhoods. Drugs, gangs, and guns also make it one of the most violent.
For me, it's quite normal, like fighting, police everywhere, like.
For many here, that is part of the colonial legacy, a history of suppression that's left them systematically disadvantaged. About a quarter of Brixton's population is Afro-Caribbean, many whose ancestors were bound and shackled, traded on ships approved and funded by Elizabeth I. Profits generated from the slave trade contributed to royal riches.
And, there's a lot of those people who will say, not our king, right? Who will say the royal family is a hangover, it's an old relic, it's a reminder of colonialism and of the empire.
More than 400 years later, King Charles obliquely acknowledged past wrongs.
Many of those wrongs belong to an earlier age with different and, in some ways, lesser values.
But there was no formal apology, only a willingness to open royal archives, which this historian says were already accessible.
His opening up of the archives doesn't really mean anything, because all you have to do is apply and not be on a sort of list via Interpol that you've committed some sort of crime, and you can get into Windsor Castle and work in the Royal Archives.
Also, no reparations, even though slave owners have been paid back millions for so-called lost property as a result of abolition in 1807.
The UK government only finished paying those reparations to the slave owners, not to the enslaved people, to the slave owners in 2015. So you can imagine, me, in my taxes, I paid reparations of slave owners.
Saturday's coronation is not a draw for Caressa Beckford, who insists her king has been absent.
I don't really care about him getting crowned. I really don't. he gets crowned, it's not really gonna do anything for me.
Still, a chance perhaps to win over a new generation on whose survival
Because it's exciting.
the monarchy depends. And here in London, parkgoers had the chance to take a ride fit for the King and Queen. A replica of the coronation coach, made available by Uber, was offering trips to give Londoners the royal treatment.
It's an opportunity for lots of people to become King Charles III or the Queen Consort, at least for a few minutes.
And on the real golden carriage on Saturday will be a woman who has made an astounding journey from public pariah to queen in waiting. Coming up next. We close tonight with the extraordinary transformation of a woman once reviled as a royal homewrecker. At age 75, she is now just days away from being crowned the Queen. CTV's Joy Malbin on Camilla's comeback.
After all these years, they just seem to fit. Hard to believe Camilla was once vilified as the other woman. Queen Elizabeth once called her wicked. Prince Harry denounced her as a villain. The backlash in a very public spotlight has not been easy.
Obviously, after the death of Diana, there was a very, very slow process and a very deliberately choreographed process to gradually rehabilitate the image of Camilla.
From well-timed media appearances, some spin doctor magic, Camilla has gained respect for her many charitable causes. Time, and it seems hard work, have softened perceptions. It's been a long journey from homewrecker to Charles's wife, and now Queen.
Camilla makes Charles happy. She makes him feel complete. She makes him feel like he can do the things he has to do, be out there engaging with the public, moving beyond his sort of comfort zone.
But at Cafe Diana, a shrine to the late princess just steps from Kensington Palace, these Canadian friends wonder, what if?
She should be the one that's the queen. So we came to remember Diana on this day.
No, I will never say Queen Camilla, no.
Dramatizations like The Crown may reopen old wounds, and yet say some, it's time to move on.
They have managed to sort of scale the heights, and ride the waves of all of that popular displeasure. And now they're being crowned. I mean, surely it's a love story.
And this coronation is not just for King Charles. Camilla will be by his side, formally crowned, a very visible recognition of just how important she is to Charles's reign. Omar?
A significant moment for them both. Thanks, Joy. CTV's Joy Malbin outside Buckingham Palace tonight. And that's a snapshot of this Wednesday from London. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and see you tomorrow.